Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dr. Christine Galib. I'm Senior Director of Programs at the ION, and I am also the chair of Ideagen's Houston, Galveston, and Philadelphia regions. And in that role, what I get to do is I get to have conversations and bring up to the virtual stage incredible leaders, collaborators, people who are doing the work of accomplishing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so I am so proud today for our Acceleration Summit, as we talk about Goal 8, to bring up to the stage one of the most visionary collaborators that I've had the chance to meet, because he sees the world through so many different lenses, through film, through his work on his team, through his past careers. And so I'd love to call up my friend Jeff to the stage, and he can tell a little bit about what he does, what his role is, and we'll get into talking about Goal 8.
Christine, what a cool introduction. I mean, I don't normally blush, but I think you just got me. You got me right in the feels. So Jeff Schiefelbein, I think that you and I first got connected through a really cool project where I was helping to promote an incredible film and story about sustainability and heroic leadership called Beyond Zero, the story of Ray Anderson. Full-time, I am one of the founders of a North American energy advisory firm, and I serve as the chief culture officer. So our firm is just called Five, the digit five. And what we do is we provide, think of every single piece of consulting you could give to a commercial or government client related to energy, so electricity and natural gas. Hundreds of schools, colleges, hospitals, some of the most marquee brands in America and in Mexico, that come to us for simple things, just process-oriented, and then risk management, procurement, sustainability, goal setting, achieving sustainability goals, and so on. So that's the company that I spend my full-time working hours in. And in addition to that, I get a really cool chance to be a collaborator with a lot of people, both as a keynote speaker, workshop producer, a little bit of coaching on the side. And it's just because of my passion and love for culture building.
I love that. And I'm so excited for our chat today, because as I look at Goal 8, which I'll read in just a minute, so many things kind of come to that and point to that, this economic growth. And so let me read the goal, and then we'll get to a little bit about what that means. So Goal 8, promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And so I know we'll talk about maybe Beyond Zero. I know we'll talk about culture, but to me, this goal is where all these things come together to give an individual a purpose, to make sure that we're doing talent development and talent retention, to make sure that we have the right people and the right roles, to make sure that really we're looking at a system and looking at it holistically. So I would love to hear your thoughts a little bit on how your work relates to Goal 8.
Yeah, I think, first of all, to share a little bit of a why. In the last 24 years of my journey between launching nonprofits and for-profits, helping religious organizations, helping corporate organizations, I've realized of these fundamental truths about human beings in work. And so we can kind of get into that maybe towards the end here. But what's really neat is everything kept pointing to these same truths about what gives somebody fulfillment, where work becomes dignified, and how as leaders we can create structures and environments that not just promote that, but actually acknowledge that work is a place of great formation. And so one of the ways that I've found that, I'll maybe just share a few examples here. Let's start off with this idea of a stakeholder mentality. We hear a lot now starting to bubble up about stakeholder capitalism, about conscious capitalism. They all kind of have these same tenets, but it's just a recognition that an organization needs to exist for a higher purpose and not just for the shareholder, or better said, for shareholder value. We got crushed, I think, for 50 years because, 50 years worth of bad rhetoric in the world because of the 1960s business model of everything about the corporation should be about making money for its owners. And that's just fundamentally false. And you can really kind of break that down and ask yourself, why does the human body exist? it has to pump blood and breathe oxygen, but that's not a good reason to exist. And neither is making money a good reason to exist. It's an outcome and it's a necessary piece, just like blood and oxygen are necessary to my body. So this idea is, okay, if you have a higher purpose and then you start to dig into the stakeholder model, everybody your company touches, and even the ones that are second or third rung to your company, are being impacted either positively, maybe in a neutral way, or negatively by the decisions you make, the supply chain decisions, the compensation decisions, the policies that you create, the way that you show up for or against what's happening in your local community or with the environment. And so this idea is that every single stakeholder group tied to your company in any way should win, like win, 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 win. And that is this law of mutuality where we're all going to be better. There's more to be gained by us all being in a winning situation instead of these hard negotiations of, let me see if I can squeeze out every last penny or bit of work out of my employees. So at Five, at this energy company, our stakeholders include our employees, our clients, our vendors, our suppliers, the community and the environment. And then we even go so far as to just say our industry in general is one of, and whether that's a strategic partner or it's truly a competitor, that's part of our stakeholder map that we're trying to make our entire ecosystem better for having existed. And I'll tell you one of the greatest compliments. Somebody comes home from, working here for their first month, and their spouse or their kids or their parents say, you are a better, happier, more productive, more fulfilled family member. And there must be something about the way that you're being coached or challenged or held to account that is causing you to be nurtured and have the chance to thrive. So long-winded way of saying stakeholder mentality is a huge part of this, and it shows up everywhere in our organization and in all these organizations. But it's also the place that if you take your eye off of it, you can start to have this murky gray area of making decisions that feel one-sided or take advantage of a situation. And that could lead to short-term gains financially, but it can really hurt and erode the long-term health of your company. You mind if I share a couple more with you on this one? I love this.
Please.
Yeah. So I get really excited. I mean, there's these UN goals. I could probably talk about 5 or 6 of them at length, but this one is so neat because then if you go back to what I said earlier, the fundamental truths of what drive people, there's a term that we like to throw around in the business world of extreme empowerment and extreme ownership. And I like all those phrases, but really the one that came from my studies of my faith in the Catholic, my Catholic faith and my following of the teachings of Christ is subsidiarity, which I always love, a 6-syllable word, but subsidiarity is like, how can I give people the utmost amount of true responsibility, not look over their shoulder at everything they do, support them when they fail and cheer that, because failure is actually a place of growth and there's accountability to it. What did you learn? But for the general populace, and I'm talking 97% of us, there's no ill will. It's actually people just make mistakes or they try things. And I remember a mentor telling me, you should try something, do something, even if it's right. And what he meant was, a lot of what you're going to do is not the best possible outcome, but you, the person, are grown and formed through it. And so Netflix has a great book where they talk about their culture. And the phrase that I love from there is, let's create a place that takes fully functioning adults, right? Let's stop treating each other like kids. Whether you're the janitor or a C-level exec, let's treat you as the fully formed adults you are, and then create a culture that's highly aligned, same direction, but loosely controlled, meaning go make it happen. Seek wise counsel when you need it. Own the outcomes. Was it better or worse than you expected, and why? And then when you have subsidiarity in your work product, then you actually start to trust people differently in the part that's not work. So what does your policy look like for vacations or spending or travel? In our case, we have an unlimited vacation policy. We've had it since day one. And we even talk all the time about how within this organization, we've had many of our leaders, in fact, the person who runs our back office, the person who runs our Northeast business, and the person who runs our business in Mexico are all female. And 2 of them have had multiple babies since this company started. They get to take a maternity leave that is whatever they want. It's been 3 months or longer, up to 4 months for one of them. And in most cases, not only are they're always coming back to the same role and same job, but there's oftentimes we're promoting this person during their leave because we're excited when they're coming back, because we've continued to grow as a company during that time that they had off. And I just think that's like such a sign of respect, dignity, and investment in somebody, that they never have to question if they're okay through that all. Two more things I'll share. I'll kind of keep them short. One is COVID hurt us. We had, revenue erosion during COVID. And I was proud to see this entire team step up without any layoffs. Everybody took a small salary cut for 10 months. And the partners, including myself, took a bigger pay cut for that time period, just so that we could bridge the cash flow dip that happened to us as the world kind of flipped upside down. And then last but not least, we create this culture of shared experiences. The people here will almost have this mentality of, I really want you to know what it's like to be loved inside of this company, but it's hard to explain outside of this company because we have our own vernacular, our own shared experiences. We've been through things together that some of them have nothing to do with energy consulting. They have to do with exploration and opening up our kind of lines of communication, maybe feeling like we step back in time and we're all 10 years old again because of the surprise and delight shared experiences that we create, but they're for a purpose. And that purpose is this team-based sport of work where together we can actually compete with what's possible. So I'll take a break there.
I love everything you've said, Jeff, and I'm just kind of sitting back here and listening and thinking, oh my goodness, what you're doing, Jeff, you are taking goal 8 and you're taking us to how this starts at the individual level for the individual person in a given company. And I think that that is so valuable because when we think about words like sustained, if one person at the top is just kind of saying, here are the marching orders, go do it, that's not sustainable for anyone. You've got to look at the team and say, how do I empower you? You want to go and you need some time off? Take 3 weeks. Why am I telling you even 3 weeks? Take unlimited. Take what you need.
Yep.
Come back refreshed, ready to go. We're here for you. We talk about inclusive, right? And you've set up in your own organization processes that don't just kind of promote inclusion, the word, but promote inclusion, the feeling, the emotion. You used the word love earlier. We had someone come in here a few weeks ago. They wrote a book called Love as a Business Strategy.
Amen.
And so they broke it down for us. They said, we're not here to talk to you about what you think when you think of love. We're here to talk to you about love as a way to build culture in a business.
Yes.
I said, oh my goodness. I said, this is amazing.
I have to react to that one. I talk about love all the time in business. And what's interesting is love is the one resource I can name that is not scarce. You can't even divide love. It's just infinite. So because it's a tool that I don't ever have to run out of or be depleted of, why wouldn't I show up in a place of love? Except for that I have to overcome, 40 years worth of business norms and false narratives. But I don't worry about those because the scoreboard shows it all. Companies that are growing with little to no turnover, where employees say, I get to come to work, not I have to come to work. To me, that's this idea of living an undivided life, that you're showing up with your personal best, not just your MBA best and your technical resource best. Those are just details of the whole person, and the health of that whole person is paramount to having a healthy team, a healthy organization, and to achieving the ultimate vision and mission of what you're trying to go and do.
So, not to overuse the word, I love that you said that, because when we think about sustainable economic growth, I'm not chasing after scarce resources to get me there. I'm chasing after infinite resources. And what do I have infinite capacity for?
That's right.
You've just given us that answer. And so I know we're coming up on time, but I want to get maybe just 1 or 2 more questions because I want to hear what's in your brain for these. What advice would you have for someone to take the next steps in tackling goal 8? Is that partnerships? Is that some of the culture work that you've been talking about? What advice for even how to get started? Maybe I'm fresh out of school and I need some help on how to get started.
Yeah. First, I would say, let's treat culture and let's treat organizational development as seriously as we take our studies for anything else that matters, whether that's our engineering, our finance, our business strategy, our legal strategy. This is a really critical part of our role, both as leaders, but also as role players within an organization. So let's dive in and go deep. And if you're not there, you got to challenge yourself to understand what is the purpose of work. Because if you think that work exists just for output of a human being, I think you're going to miss this mark. I don't think you're going to achieve this goal. So it has to start internal and become a reality so that it can become external, and just recognize that when you dig in, when you are intentional about every type of communication, what onboarding looks like, how you actually reprimand and terminate, how you think about physical office space. If you really are being honest with yourself and digging in, there's a lot of things you just do that a certain way because it's always been done that way. And that's not a good answer. That's not a place of human flourishing. And it's not just that the world has advanced and we're dealing with people that maybe have new types of anxiety and work from home issues and successes. It's also just that at its core, I think we were taught the wrong way, that we were taught to be in a I'm great and you're not culture. And for me to win, you have to lose. And so I would challenge people, go and study the companies that are leading the way. I mentioned it earlier. Go and listen into what's happening in conscious capitalism and just be challenged by these organizations. I listened to a podcast this morning about a company that only hires active gang members into their company. So that's so progressive. Couldn't I be challenged myself to understand that maybe I'm now willing to hire somebody who has a felony record? I might not be ready to go as far as the active gang member, but the lessons I learned from studying these other organizations are so palpable that I can turn around and apply them immediately. So I would just say, hire experts that care about culture, care about it yourself, be coached to understand and challenge yourself in it. Because the last thing you want to do is wake up at the end of your career, retiring, having your money in your nest egg, and regretting that you didn't have an impact that was sustainable and that moved the world. And you keep going back to this sustainable love and culture. When we were in the middle of COVID, we wanted to come out of it. And remember, we deal with energy. We do energy consulting. And our theme that was not really about energy, it was about us, was renew, sustain, thrive. And that's exactly what we try to do for clients' energy needs. But it's who we are as human beings that's encompassed in this renew, sustain, thrive mentality. And so I would just encourage people, dig in. There is a wealth of knowledge out there, and everything you read, challenge it. Just because somebody made billions of dollars running a company a certain way doesn't mean that that's what's right for human beings or for the world.
Well, Jeff, that was amazing. And we're going to have to find a way to bring you back here because there is so much that we have yet to cover that I want to hear about. But I think for today, we'll leave our audience with these nuggets of wisdom as, always be curious. Integrative bargaining came to mind. You were talking a little bit about it's not a zero-sum game. And I think it's really important for us as leaders as we head into the next 10, 20, 30 years, the next centuries on the earth and on the moon and maybe even on Mars, thinking through what it means to take that culture with us. What culture are we going to leave on Mars?
And nobody meets their maker joking about, or nobody meets their maker at the end of their life bragging about their earnings per share or how many widgets came out the factory. This is about human impact, and that can happen on any planet. So let's do it.
I love it. We're going to end on that note. Audience members, listeners, thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.